The Galactic Coalition Military Academy sat like a crown jewel on the surface of Kyrex Prime, a neutral planet chosen for its stable climate and lack of native predators. It was a place where the best from dozens of worlds came to train together, to become something more than just warriors, unified defenders of the stars. Cadet Riley Strass stepped off the drop shuttle in her standard-issue uniform, the smallest of the new arrivals. Her boots hit the tarmac with quiet precision, her face calm, unreadable beneath dark brown eyes and wind-mussed hair. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The others were already watching. Humans were still new to the Coalition, having only joined a few decades ago. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet where every form of life seemed to evolve with one purpose: to kill or outlast everything else. As a result, human physiology had stunned the Coalition. Resilient nervous systems, dense muscle fiber, lightning reflexes, and immune systems that made most biologists rethink the laws of biology. But Riley didn't look like a Deathworlder. She was short, wiry, and moved with the lazy grace of someone who didn't care if anyone underestimated her, which they always did. At orientation, she stood alone, not because she was antisocial, but because no one dared get too close. The stories about humans were whispered among the cadets, tales of acid-resistant skin, pain tolerance that bordered on inhuman, and the worst one, they smiled during combat. The first week passed quietly. Riley kept her head down during academic modules, scored in the upper third during tactical sims, and aced environmental survival drills without complaint. Most instructors made no comment, though a few raised an eyebrow at her precision. It was in Xenocombat's sparring class that things began to shift. "Pair off," barked Commander Vel, a towering insectoid from the Cretan Swarm Nation, as he circled the class with folded arms. "No killing blows. No claws. You get 5 minutes or until submission. Learn your limits, and learn what your opponent is made of." Riley stood near the edge of the ring, stretching her shoulders. She watched as the larger cadets immediately grouped off, species like the Cravarii, the stone-skinned Breen, and the Drathoin. And speaking of Drathoin, a shadow loomed over her. "You," rumbled Cadet Gorvak, standing nearly 7 feet tall, plated in thick gray hide. "I'll take the monkey. I want to see if the stories are real." Riley looked up slowly. She gave a single nod. "Fine." Gorvak barked a laugh. "No fight? No Earth rage." She shrugged. "No point talking. That's your kind's favorite hobby. I'm more results-oriented." Commander Vel's antennae twitched. Cadet Strass and Cadet Gorvak. Into the ring. The crowd of cadets gathered in a wide circle as the two entered the mat. Riley crouched slightly, knees loose, hands open. Gorvak towered over her, grinning with all 4 rows of his tusked teeth. He struck first, a feint with his right, then a lunge. Riley dodged low. His claws caught air. She pivoted. Fast. Gorvak snarled. Too slow. And that was when he grabbed her. His hand clamped around her throat, lifting her easily into the air. A collective gasp rippled through the cadets. Even Vel took a step forward. Riley dangled for a second. Her expression didn't change. Gorvak leaned in. "Weak little." He never finished the sentence. With a flick of her body, Riley swung her legs up around his torso, locking him in a crushing grip. One hand braced against his shoulder for leverage. The other gripped his collarbone. Then she pulled. Crack. The sound was horrible. Wet. Final. Riley dropped to the ground as Gorvak howled and fell backward, clutching his shoulder. In her hand was something pale and jagged, his collarbone torn out at the root. She looked at it, dropped it. Silence. No one moved. Gorvak writhed on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Commander Vel stepped forward. His multifaceted eyes regarded her. "Explain." Riley exhaled through her nose. "He broke the rules. He grabbed my neck." I responded with restraint. Vel tilted his head. "You call this restraint?" "If I wasn't restrained," she replied, "he wouldn't be screaming." No one argued. Paramedics rushed in. Cadets stared at her like she was some kind of apex predator, not just a human girl. Riley walked calmly off the mat, past stunned faces, and toward the showers, without looking back. And she didn't smile. Not yet. The medical bay reeked of antiseptic and scorched pain suppressors. Cadet Gorvac lay strapped to a biostabilization cradle, growling under his breath as alien medics worked to knit his torn muscle and regenerate fragments of bone. His species could regrow most skeletal tissue within days, but the humiliation wouldn't heal nearly as fast. She ripped it out, he muttered, flexing his uninjured hand. She ripped out my collarbone. Across the academy, the story had already spread. Mutated, exaggerated, feared. The human girl who took the bone. Some said she did it barehanded. Others claimed she bit it out. But those who were there, they knew. They heard it. Instructors made no official comment. Commander Vell filed the incident under appropriate response during elevated threat in controlled environment. Gorvac had violated the no-choking rule. Riley had acted fast, efficiently, and critically with non-lethal force, at least by Deathworld standards. Riley sat in the psych evaluation chamber, posture relaxed, breathing steady. The chamber lights scanned her vitals, heart rate, 58 BPM. Skin conductivity, normal. Pupils dilated only slightly. No elevated adrenaline. No emotional tremors. Psych Officer Relan, a four-eyed amphiboid, blinked at the data tablet and looked up at her. You removed another cadet's collarbone, he said carefully. Yes, Riley answered. And you remained emotionally stable during the act. Yes. He tilted his head. Why? Riley considered it. Because where I'm from, if someone grabs your neck, they don't get a second chance. I gave him one. I didn't take his life. I took his weapon. Relan leaned forward. What do you think about what you did? I think I let him go easy, she said flatly. He stared, then typed something into the tablet. Stable. Dangerous only in response to lethal aggression. Deathworld logic confirmed. No psychological flags. Dismissed. Back in the cadet dorms, Riley returned to silence. Her room was quiet. No one greeted her. In the common areas, hushed conversations stopped when she walked past. Cadets looked at her like she might explode at any moment. She didn't mind. It was peaceful until someone knocked. She opened the door to find a cadet with smooth blue skin and 6 delicate fingers. Zorix Azalani. Their species was known for agility and diplomacy, not combat. Zorix looked nervous but determined. I saw what you did, they said. And I think I understand it. Riley raised an eyebrow. You do. Zorix nodded. I grew up with predator avians on my moon. We learned not to poke the sleeping ones. That Drathman, he poked. A brief silence passed. I was wondering, Zorix continued, if you'd be willing to spar. Not a fight. Just, I want to learn. You're not like the others. Riley considered. You're not afraid of me? I'm aware of you. Zorix corrected gently. There's a difference. Riley stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. Then let's start with balance. That's what everyone gets wrong. In the following days, the tension shifted. Some cadets kept their distance. Others watched Riley during drills, absorbing her movements. She never showed off. No unnecessary flourishes. She didn't need to. Everything she did was efficient. Calculated. Lethal, if needed. Commander Vell pulled her aside after a drill. You've made quite an impression. I wasn't trying to, she said. That's what makes it worse. Or better, depending on the lens. His mandibles clicked thoughtfully. There will be consequences. Cadet Gorvac's pride runs deeper than his bones. Be alert. I always am. He leaned closer. Do not strike first. I can only protect you if you're within the code. Riley met his gaze. I never strike first. He gave a slow nod, then walked away. That night, someone left a note in Riley's locker. A single sheet of plastic and signed. It read, You've shamed a warrior. That won't go unanswered. She read it twice, then folded it and tucked it into her boot. Just in case. Cadet Gorvac was back on his feet within 5 days, faster than the medics expected, but fueled by shame and a seething desire for revenge. Though his collarbone had been regenerated, the pain of being humiliated by a smaller, younger human in front of the entire Xenocombat class lingered in every fiber of his pride. He stood shirtless before the mirror in the barracks, flexing. The regenerated bone ached. A jagged scar remained where Riley had ripped it free. He traced it with a claw. You made me a joke, he growled. Two other Drathuan cadets, bulkier, just as arrogant, flanked him in silence. Vrek and Thurn, old allies from the homeworld, had seen the recording. They'd watched her movements frame by frame. To them, Gorvak hadn't been bested by luck. He'd been outclassed. Still, they were loyal, and they agreed on one thing. A blood debt had been opened. In Drathuan culture, it had to be closed. Riley noticed the change immediately. She could feel it in the air. Not fear, tension, the kind that lived in long shadows and slow footsteps. Whispers stopped just a little too late. Cadets moved aside a second too early when she entered hallway. And Gorvak didn't look away anymore. Now he stared. Zorix noticed too. They're planning something. They whispered one evening in the mess. You feel it. Riley nodded. I've seen this dance before. They want to catch me off guard. Why not report it to Commander Vel? She took a bite of protein mash. Because that would change nothing. They're not going through official channels. They're waiting until I'm alone. Zorix hesitated. You not worried? I didn't say that, Riley replied calmly. I just don't panic. Panic is a soft-worlder thing. Zorix blinked. You say that like an insult. It's not, she said. It's just not something I can afford. The next day, during weapons drills, Vel called Riley to the front. The instructor held a practice vibroblade in each hand. Show the class the human death grip your kind uses in close combat. Riley nodded and stepped into the sparring circle. She demonstrated the motion slowly. Elbow locked, pivot on the heel, twist at the wrist. The blade's tip ended at Vel's throat in less than 2 seconds. Efficient, Vel noted. Silent. And final. Cadets watched with fresh unease. Even those who admired her had never seen her move like that in public again since the collarbone incident. She's a bone thief, someone muttered. Riley heard. She didn't react. After class, Gorvak brushed past her, his voice low. Tonight. Lower gym. Come alone. Let's finish what you started. Riley stopped mid-step, then kept walking. She showed up. The auxiliary training gym was dimly lit, quiet, and empty on the surface. But Riley knew better. The tension in the air was coiled tight. They were here, watching, waiting. She walked barefoot onto the mat, tied her hair back, and stood at the center of the ring. Calm. Still. A door opened behind her. Gorvak entered, flanked by Vrek and Thurn. No instructors. No cameras. Just 3 Drathuan males and 1 human girl. This isn't sparring, Gorvak said. This is reckoning. No, Riley said. This is stupidity. He charged. The fight was over in seconds. Gorvak led with a heavy swing. Riley ducked, kicked his knee out from under him, spun, and struck his neck with the edge of her hand. He dropped with a grunt. Vrek came next, slower but stronger. She grabbed his wrist mid-punch, twisted it backward with a sickening pop, then slammed her elbow into his solar plexus. He crumpled. Thurn hesitated. That was his mistake. Riley launched off the wall, using gravity like a weapon. She landed on his shoulders, locked her legs around his head, and brought him crashing down. Her foot pressed to his throat. Silence. She looked down at Gorvak. He was bleeding again, from the other shoulder this time. You didn't learn the first time, she said. I'll have your badge for this, he gasped. No, she said, stepping off him. You'll have another scar. She turned and walked out, leaving the 3 of them sprawled on the mat. Commander Vel reviewed the surveillance footage in silence, mandibles twitching slightly. Though the auxiliary gym was off the official grid, Riley had known where the hidden security nodes were and had deliberately dragged the fight into their range. Smart, brutal, legal. He filed the report under unprovoked assault, defensive response authorized, just as he had the first time. But even he knew this wasn't going away. Not unless someone forced it to. Cadet Riley Strass sat alone in the observation deck later that night, watching the sky spin over Kyrex Prime. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel much of anything. The violence had been necessary, controlled, nothing she hadn't faced before. But now, she was more than just a Deathworlder. She was a symbol, and not everyone liked what that symbol stood for. Zorix joined her quietly. They're not going to stop, they said. Even now, after the second incident. Riley didn't look at them. Let them keep trying. I'll keep finishing. Zorix exhaled, then placed a data chip on the ledge. "What's that?" "The full footage," Zorix replied. "Audio included. You pulled them into the camera's field. Clever. But you didn't have to fight. You could have run." "I don't run," Riley said flatly. "Especially not from cowards." Zorix hesitated. "You know what the upper officers are saying? They're not debating whether to expel the Drathoin. They're debating whether to keep you." Riley finally turned. "Why me?" "Because you make the others nervous. You're not just a human. You're proof that all their assumptions about strength and control are wrong." Riley stared out the viewport again. "Then they better adjust their assumptions." The next morning, Vel summoned Riley to his office. He studied her with his compound eyes, steepling his claws. "I've reviewed the full footage. It checks out." "Again?" She nodded. "Of course it does. You deliberately dragged the fight under surveillance, used non-lethal methods, and left without further damage." "Yes. And yet, this cycle of violence will escalate if it continues. We can't have private vendettas here. Not at this level." Riley folded her arms. "I didn't start it, but you finished it, and that's what worries them." Vel leaned closer. "You're efficient, calculated, terrifying to many of your peers. The other cadets either idolize you or avoid you. There's no middle ground. That creates instability." Riley's voice was quiet. "Then maybe you should teach them what stability actually is." Vel paused, then leaned back slowly. "I have an assignment for you." She raised an eyebrow. "You're going to lead the next mixed-species combat drill." Riley blinked. "Lead?" "Yes. Select 3 cadets. Demonstrate cross-species coordination in live combat simulation. Show the rest that you can lead, not just break bones. If you succeed, the board will see more than just a dangerous human. They'll see a potential officer." Riley considered. "And if I fail?" Vel didn't answer. He didn't need to. 2 days later, the entire academy gathered in the simulation dome, where environment and terrain could be morphed on command. Forests, urban war zones, low-gravity cliffs. It was the ultimate test of applied tactics and team coordination. Riley stood before her chosen squad. Zorix, the agile Zilani scout. Creel, a cautious Breen engineer. Rashala, a telepathic Aenery support cadet. An unusual mix, but smart. Commander Vel's voice echoed overhead. "Objective: secure the beacon at Grid 7. Hostiles will be randomized. You will be observed." The simulation launched. Explosions rocked the jungle. Enemy drones swarmed. Environmental hazards pulsed with electricity and flame. Riley took command instantly. Zorix, high ground. Creel, rig EMP pulses. Rashala, cover our mines, block decoy projections. They moved with speed and purpose, Riley's voice cutting through chaos like a knife. She didn't shout. She instructed. They followed. 10 minutes later, the beacon lit green. Objective complete. Minimal injuries. Full cohesion. When the simulation shut down, silence filled the dome. Then applause. Real. Genuine. Even hesitant admiration from some of those who once whispered, "Bone thief." Commander Vel approached her. "You can break collarbones," he said softly, "but now you've shown you can build teams, too." Riley nodded once. "I don't want to be feared. I want to be respected. There's a difference." He tilted his head. "And now they know it." Later that evening, a message arrived on Riley's datapad. Official Academy seal. Signed by the board. Leadership evaluation passed. Incident reports closed. Recommendation: advanced officer training approved. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, for the first time since her arrival, Riley smiled. Just a little, but enough.